Hello, hello. Welcome to day 9. I'm going to quickly spray my paints real quick. We're going to paint a Christmas wreath today. I have clean water over here. It's a little hard to see. I have 3 jars, but you can see part of one. We'll go with that. I have my little cloth and there are a couple different ways that you can do a wreath. I've seen lots of people take like a mini jar, if you have one that's small enough to fit on your paper, and they paint the edges of the jar with the paint and then press the jar on so you get like a nice perfect circle, and then you kind of spread out that paint as you're painting. I've actually never tried that. My jars are just always full of water, or in this case, they're barely, they're a little too big. It would be tight to fit on there. And I don't have a smaller jar available right now. So we are just going to find something else to use for a circle, like my tape roll. That is a pretty good size, I think. And I'm just going to sketch a very light circle around it just so I have an outline. And we're just going to go from there. It's got a little light here, but I can see. And it's okay if it gets a little off. Real wreaths are not perfect circles anyway. I mean, they start as a perfect circle, but the way the leaves and pine needles and everything stick out, it's not going to be perfect, and that's okay. So yeah, and because I'm painting so small, I'm going to use my liner brush for most of this this painting. We want to get nice fine pine branches, maybe some berries, pine cone or two. So we don't want to go too much bigger than that. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to wet my brush. I've got, I have both my pretty palette and then my travel palette here. But on here I have some of that Perylene green that I like and my Undersea green. And I'm going to use kind of both of them because I want to have a good variation of greens in my wreath. So let me just make sure these are nice and wet. I want to make sure I have a nice pool of paint that I can pull from. I'm going to start with some lighter color. So I'm pulling the color out here and adding some water to it. So it'll be a lighter value, and then we can layer on some darker values on top afterward. And for now, I'm just going to take a color and I'm just going to go around here. I'm going to try not to be as detailed as I can be. I'm just going to and I'm going to start, I think, by just doing the basic lines just to get the shape. And then I will come back and add the actual pine needles and other leaf styles afterwards. And I want to make them go kind of all around in the same general direction. They're going to stick out which way, but you really don't want to have them go this way after you started going this way. It just doesn't make sense unless, you know, you created a wreath in which you changed the direction of your pine needles and leaves and branches. Yeah, so I'm just gonna fill this all in with the basic branch lines. Might have to rotate my paper a bit because it's easier to go at certain angles. It's a little harder to go sideways. I'm leaving a lot of white space. That way we can add in pine cones if we so choose, berries. I've seen some wreaths where they also have different kind of leaves mixed in too. Eucalyptus is a fun one to add in there. And so we'll build up on this as we go. So starting small and simple is a good way to get started. We can even adjust this one. I don't have a lot of detail there. Maybe I'll put a bow up there. I haven't quite decided how we're going to do it. One thing we might want to do is decide if we're going to do pine cones or something and maybe put in some light brown in the right shape. We can add in the details here in a bit. So I'm just going to get some of this light brown. I'm using my burnt sienna and a bit of sepia to get a nice light colored. Adding water into here. I want it to be a nice light value to just be the basic color of the pine cone. And I think I'm going to put one in here, and I'm just going to have it get a little bit wider as it comes down to the bottom. That rough like pine cone kind of shape. And I'm even going to have it go kind of over and behind so it looks like it's sitting within the branch, within the pine needles, and the leaves. It can be covered a little bit by some of those. I'm going to put another one right about here, I think. This one I'm starting at the base and I'm working my way up, so I'm going to make it get a little bit smaller this way. This is just getting the rough shape in there. And I think I'll do one more. We'll do 3. And this one's going to go kind of right here. And stick out on the inside just like that other one did. Okay. So there's our pine cones. I maybe could have gone a little bit more even. It kind of bugs me because it's not really symmetrical, but as we add in other details, I think it'll be fine. If we wanted to, we could add a 4th one maybe right here, so it's kind of symmetrical. You know what, let's go ahead and we'll just do that. We'll add this guy in, and he's gonna still face kind of down, but he'll go there. And then we can build up around him. Excuse me, I'm sorry. I don't know where my water is to drink. I have paint water, but no drinking water. I will go look for some of that here in a bit. Okay. So now we have those there. We know we can avoid those areas and work around them when we add in our leaves. I think before we add in any of the pine leaves or branches, let's pick a few areas to maybe add some of that eucalyptus. And you can do the small round eucalyptus, or you can do kind of a taller, longer branches, leaves. Let's see. I'm going to pick a few spots and just kind of plop some in here. We got this one, and so we'll do a nice little round bit there, a round one there. And then we'll also do a little like a C. It looks like the front of the eucalyptus leaf is coming toward us. My colors all kind of ran together, so a lot of my Perylene green has that Undersea green in it. That's okay though. Makes them look nice here. And we're gonna kind of go around the edges of the wreath and add in these eucalyptus leaves. And you want to alternate whether it's going into the leaf or outside the wreath. That one's out, this one's in. You don't have to go alternating like that. You just want to vary. Sometimes have them go out, sometimes have them go in. I might even add another one inside here. And we're going to have we can have some lighter colors, and then we can add in some darker ones. We can vary where that pointed one, not pointed, the one that looks like it's coming up front, we can vary where that one sits. I'm going to rotate my paper to make it a little bit easier. Do another one up here. So my stems are getting a little thick. It's hard to do when they're so small. I'll probably come back in a bit, maybe add another one really close, because they don't have to be completely separate. I can even add one here like it's a grouping of them. This one might be a little lighter. We'll go up here. And you can have them stick out a bit more. And as we fill it in, it'll be a little bit, it'll look different. Our wreath is going to fill in. We're going to fill in more inside and out. I might even, that one's kind of a lighter green. Go ahead and add in this darker green nearby. And we can always come back and add more of these in as we go. If we add in our pine needles, maybe our berries and other things, and we decide we want to add in some more, we can do that then too. It's the beauty of this style of painting. We can make adjustments as we go. We don't have to paint all of the eucalyptus at once and all of the pine needles at once, etc. It's helpful sometimes to bounce around. It's nice to get an idea, like get your shape in there first with the stems like we did, and then you can bounce around as to what you're doing exactly with all those stems. And so we can go ahead and fill in some of these now with the pine branches. I'm getting the paint on my brush, and then I tap a little bit because I don't want it to be too thick with paint. And then I'm just going to go through and do just a bunch of little lines. Get a little more paint. I did not tap that one off, and the paint is going on a little thicker there. So gotta make sure we're doing that. I have a hard time pulling the paint down like this. So I may want to rotate my paper just a bit, just so that you're in a good position for your hands. Whatever way is comfortable for you. You don't have to paint it the same way I am. Just find what works for you and do varying colors. And get some a little bit lighter. And fill that in a bit. We can go over where the eucalyptus was. We can go under, and you want to do the stems going both ways, in and out. Those all went outside of my wreath. I'm going to do some coming in to the middle here. You can have some stick out more than others to be kind of realistic. The circle can get a little wonky. This is also realistic. We're going to go back at the end and we'll add in some darker values because our leaves, we don't want them to all be one value or too close to the same. They're all kind of light. We need to add some darks in there. Look like shadows. Yeah, continue to turn it around as we go, because for me it's a little easier to pull it from this way when my paper is facing this angle. It just works better for me. I'm just pulling random little lines of color. I can go over where that pine cone is. You want to have some of your pine cones sticking out from the pine needles, but some can go under, and that is okay. can vary up the way your little stems or the pine needles are going. I typically start at the base of the pine needle stem and then pull them out that way. It's a little bit harder. They don't sit right when you start outside and bring them in. At least not in my experience. They look a little bit funny when I do the bottom layer like that, so I have to kind of rotate to get just the right angle. Find which angle works best for you. You may find it doesn't matter, but they may look a little bit better from one angle. Then another. This one. Some of these got a little thick. Something else you could add on there is holly. Probably could have done that before we added all this other stuff in here. I mean, we're going to add the holly berries anyway. I feel like a Christmas wreath has to have red berries on it. I don't know. I don't think they all do. I actually have a reference photo pulled up that has orange slices, which could be fun too. But for now, I'm trying to keep it simple. Orange slices might give us some more variation. Might be fun to try another time. You're welcome to try that on your own if you prefer the look of the orange slices. But I will just be sticking with the berries and the pine cones. And if we feel like it, we might be able to add in a little bit of holly, but that might actually be tricky. It might just be the berries without the holly. Oh, see, and this is one of those ones where I'm pulling it away, pulling it down. I just don't like how my lines look that way. And that's why if I were going to tape this down, I would have preferred to tape it to a board than to the desk. Because if I tape it to the desk, then I can't rotate my paper. And then I'm kind of stuck with whatever direction I have taped it down. Okay. So there we go. We have a nice base layer. I will say I probably want to, I might take some, these are all too round. None of them are sticking out, which I don't think is very realistic. So I'm going to just add in a couple little bits sticking out. Okay, so there's a nice base for our wreath. I'm probably going to pick a few areas we're going to go in and we can darken up some of the pine cones, and we'll find a few spots we're going to put those berries before it gets too dark, and then we can add in some of our darker leaves to give some depth, because right now it's kind of flat. There's a little bit of change in value, but a lot of it's the same color. So we definitely got to add in some darker areas there. But let's go ahead and do some of the pine cone. Darken up some bits of those. And now when we're doing the touching up the pine cones, we want, it's going to be kind of darker in the middle, and our edges are the lighter areas. So I'm adding more of that sepia. And then we're just going to go in and add just some bits of color towards the center here and kind of around what looks like it would be the edges of our pine cones. I'm not going through and painting every little detailed section. I'm really just adding in hints of dark, leaving space open. The pine cone is where the edges are sticking out, especially near the edges. There's lots of that lighter color showing. Normally, if I was painting a larger painting and if I was painting more detailed, taking my time, I would go through and make sure that these are giving the right shape for the pine cone. I would do almost an outline, but not quite. But this, I'm just kind of giving the impression of the darker areas. Oh, sorry, a dog ran into my camera stand. So I apologize for that little wobble. But yeah, for this, we're just trying to give the impression of a pine cone, so it doesn't matter as much, and we're going to actually get some more of that a lighter brown with some of that color and kind of soften some of that dark that we just put in with a little bit of a kind of a mid-range color. Some of it, the darker area is just very dark compared to the lighter area. And so adding just a touch of that middle color can help it look more like a pine cone. Okay, I think that gives enough of the impression of the pine cone. And so now let's use some red. I have my Cad Red medium hue. And I'm just gonna use that as is. And I'm just gonna pick a few spaces here and there where I'm gonna add in some berries. I'm going to add them in clusters. And then we'll add, especially if I have some space here where I left it white a little bit and it's easy to kind of squeeze in those berries. This is a nice one. We can also go back in and add some more green leaves to these areas. I don't want them to be too symmetrical. I want to have some clusters closer together than others. To give a realistic impression. Some clusters of the berries can be smaller than others. You can put some on the edges, like coming out toward the middle of the wreath there, or the outside edge. Just doing a bunch of little dots. We could probably take a white pen and add a couple of teeny tiny highlights to some of these berries if we wanted to. But for now, I'm just plopping them in here to add a little bit of color to our wreath. I might add a stray berry here or there. Okay. All right. And now we can just go in and fill in some of that in-between space with some slightly darker leaves, create some shadows. Make sure it gets some paint, tap it off so it's not thick with paint. And rotate your paper if you need to, because again, paint doesn't always come very well that way for me, and this is a little thick for some reason. I'm just going to kind of bounce around with the darker paint. And then I might come back in even with some other values of the green. I could add some more of the eucalyptus as well if we feel like we want some more. But for now, I'm just mixing in some lights and darks. Really just adding in the darks to where we already had. Plenty of lights added. And especially near like the berries and the pine cones, there would probably be a little more shadow. And so trying to add some of that near there. Just because there's more going on. And we could do a lot more with this if it was a bigger painting. It's a little tricky when we're stuck with a small brush because we're painting small. But I think we're getting a good idea of what's going on in here. Even at this small scale. There we go. Adding that dark right at the base of that pine cone. Could even put some on this side of the pine cone. Okay. All right, now there's more that we could do, but I think for now that this is a very good, basic, simple wreath. If you wanted to, like I said, you could take a little bit of white pen. Careful, the pen is going to be a little thick, and you can just kind of tap it on some of the berries to look like a reflection. But I wouldn't go too over the top, and I don't even know that it's really making all that much of a difference. If it was bigger, you could use your bleed-proof white or something and like really add in some highlights. Maybe even shadows on the berries would actually be probably very helpful. If it was bigger, we could probably still kind of try to do that. Grab some of this darker red and then just pick like one side to be a shadow and just add some of that to your berries to give them more of a 3D look. But at this small scale, I don't think it matters as much. We could also take a wet brush and kind of smear some of this out, make it more loose, but this is more of that natural, realistic style that I typically paint in, but at a much smaller scale. But there you go. It's your wreath. Let me know if you add something else into it, if you're more of a citrus, adding the oranges, or you can make a leaf that has lights in it. You doing that glow that we did yesterday and kind of putting it in there in spots, and you would just want to have lighter areas of your leaves and stems and stuff too, anywhere where there's a light, so it looks like the glow is on the stem too. That might be a fun project to try in the future. But there you go. There's our wreath, and I will see you tomorrow for day 10. Bye, y'all.